the Chi-Town experience on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.
We now have our coach in Ben Johnson, but now it's time to fix this Chicago Bears roster. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Bears fans, before we go any further with today's episode of Keek on the Mic, I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is BetUS. As always, Bears fans, make sure you guys head over to betus.com and use promo code YouTube150 for 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000, and also get 125% second and third deposits as well. All right, Bears fans, it is that time of season here on the Chicago Bears content creator's mind, and that is a mock offseason video. This will be a 2025 Chicago Bears 1.0 mock offseason video right here on the podcast. And I'm going to kind of simplify things a little bit. I'm only going to be doing free agency and the NFL draft. I will do a more in-depth mock offseason video later on, probably in the next month or two. But for the purpose of today's video, I am only going to be doing free agency signings and the NFL draft, probably just rounds 1, 2, and 3 for the Chicago Bears. So we have our new coach in place, and Ben Johnson. So now we have a clearer vision, and he really set those standards in his introductory press conference yesterday of his visions of the team and what he really wants. And one of the biggest things that really caught my attention about Ben Johnson is the fact that he understands that the Chicago Bears need to build through the trenches. Something that Ryan Poles has admitted that, hey, it needs to be better. And now that we have Ben Johnson in place and where he's coming from, a place where Detroit Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the National Football League, he understands how crucial it is for Ryan Poles and himself to build a really good offensive line for Caleb Williams moving forward. But before I start this 2025 Chicago Bears mock offseason video on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, I do want to talk a little bit about Chicago Bears staff news. Out of Chicago, the Bears will not be retaining interim head coach Thomas Brown, interim OC Chris Beatty, O-line coach Chris Morgan, quarterbacks coach Kerry Joseph, and DC Eric Washington. This is really by no surprise. We kind of had a feeling that Ben Johnson was going to come in and just, start fresh on the offensive side of the football, bring in guys that he is more comfortable with. The good news, Bears fans, is that they are going to retain special teams coach Richard Hightower. That's the direction that it's going, because it seems like Darren Rizzi is going to have another opportunity elsewhere. So the Chicago Bears will get to retain Richard Hightower, special teams coach, which I am totally okay with. He has a lot of respect in the locker room. I always felt that Richard Hightower was one of our better coaches on this coaching staff. So it's going to be a really nice feeling to keep that continuity on the Chicago Bears coaching staff by keeping Richard Hightower. I do want to give a huge shout out to Thomas Brown. He was dealt a really crappy hand and a really crappy situation when Matt Eberflus got fired, and he gave us a lifetime long memory beating the Green Bay Packers for the first time in a very long time. I wish him nothing but success in his next opportunities as offense coordinator. Honestly, Chris Beatty was a well-respected guy in the Chicago Bears locker room as well. I am so happy to see Chris Morgan go. Really struggled developing offensive line talent, allowing our quarterbacks to get sacked multiple times a game. And I know a lot of Bears fans are happy about Chris Morgan not being retained. Not sure how he made it so long, but finally Ben Johnson makes the right choice by not retaining him. Kerry Joseph, another guy that has a lot of respect. And of course, Eric Washington really wasn't a great stint as the interim defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, but I do feel like those last couple of games, he definitely got better. Once again, I'm wishing all these guys future success in their next stops as coordinator. So here we go, Bears fans. Now it's time for the 2025 Chicago Bears mock offseason video, where I'll be talking about free agency moves that the Chicago Bears need to be making and the NFL draft as well, rounds 1 through 3. As always, Bears fans, as I'm going through this mock offseason video on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, make sure you guys are commenting down below. Put your GM hats on. Act like you are Ryan Poles or Ben Johnson, and let me know what you would do, what moves you think the Chicago Bears need to make in order to hopefully get back to winning ways here in Chicago. So here we go. Let's go ahead and start with free agency. And there's going to be a lot of talent, especially on the offensive line. The Chicago Bears are possibly going to be starting out around $80 to $82 million in cap space. Obviously, that number can be higher with maybe some couple of cuts here and there. But for the purpose of today's video, we're going to start off with around $80 million in cap space. And the very first thing I am doing is going out and signing guard Trey Smith. I'm originally from the Kansas City Chiefs. There is a whole lot of rumors saying that him and the Chiefs have discussed a contract extension, but it looks like the Chiefs are not going to franchise tag him, and they're going to allow him to hit free agency, which is a huge deal for the Chicago Bears because we have massive needs on the offensive line, especially on the interior of the offensive line. When you're looking at a guy like Trey Smith, Bears fans, he's only 25 years old. Stands at 6'6", 322 pounds. He is one of the best guards in the league. Solid in pass protections. 0 sacks given up. 5 quarterback hits allowed this season. So really solid in pass protection. Has been really instrumental in keeping Patrick Mahomes protected, giving him clean pockets for the last couple of years. Has been huge in really creating that dynasty, that really high-powered offense over there in Kansas City. The one huge thing I really love about Trey Smith is his availability. The guy has never missed a game, and that's something that Bears fans are not used to because we have had a lot of banged up offensive linemen over the last couple of years with, Nate Davis unable to stay healthy, Tevin Jenkins unable to stay healthy, Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright. We have never had offensive line, that durability and the availability of the offensive line to stay on the field, and that is something that is really next level about Trey Smith. There's going to be a lot of competition for a guy like Trey Smith. Obviously, when you look at the New England Patriots, they're thinking the same thing as us. They have a young quarterback in Drake May. They have $132 million in cap space to spend. So I think they're going to push hard also for a guy like Trey Smith. What I feel that gives the Chicago Bears the edge here when we're talking about Trey Smith is his connection with Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles played a huge part back in 2021 when he was a part of the Kansas City Chiefs scouting department and drafting Trey Smith to Kansas City. And then another thing that I do want to bring up is that Trey Smith and Darnell Wright also played 2 years together at Tennessee. So that connection is obviously there. So hopefully Darnell Wright does us a huge favor this offseason and reaches out to Trey Smith, because this is the first thing the Chicago Bears need to do. This will be a huge upgrade on the interior of the offensive line. And I think it's a must add for the Chicago Bears this offseason. The second thing I'm going to do is, once again, continuing on the trenches, and that is going to be signing center Drew Dalman. And I know a lot of people may say, hey, we don't really need to upgrade. Coleman Shelton played well, got better, started off slow, but played better down the stretch. He's going to be cheaper, keep that continuity with him and Caleb Williams. But I do think that Drew Dalman is still the better player over Coleman Shelton. He's only 26 years old, stands at 6'3", 300 pounds. And when you look at Dalman, he is a high-level starter that will help shore up the interior of the offensive line and protect Caleb Williams. Has been an absolute force in the run game since 2021, finishing with the best run blocking grades in 2022 and 2023. And he continues to improve as a pass protector as well. Only gave up 10 total pressures, 2 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks as well this season for the Atlanta Falcons offensive line. And once again, this is going to be a huge focus for Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson this season. If we want Ben Johnson's offense to work, we have to try our best to replicate what he had in Detroit. And first things first, you have to build the trenches, something that Ryan Poles has struggled on years and years and years as a Chicago Bears GM. You can't be cheap this season. They need to shore up the offensive line. I think they need to do it both in free agency and the NFL draft. But starting off by getting Trey Smith and Drew Dalman to really shore up your interior offensive line would be a really good start for the Chicago Bears football team. Now moving on, the next signing for me in free agency, once again sticking with the trenches and going with a familiar name for Ben Johnson, and that is going to get guard Kevin Zeitler from the Detroit Lions. I understand he's 34 years old, but he stands at 6'4", 340 pounds. Once again, familiar with Ben Johnson. I imagine that Ben Johnson is going to get try to get some familiar names from Detroit and bring them over to Chicago. He is a beast as a run blocker, also really solid in pass protection as well this year, only 5 sacks allowed. And he's also a very durable player as well. He's always available. And once again, that's something that's been a huge deal for the Chicago Bears offensive line over the last couple of years. He appeared in 15 games for 10 straight years. So for me, when I'm looking at a guy like Kevin Zeitler, yes, he is 34 years old, but I think it's going to be important to bring in a guy that has experience with Ben Johnson, a guy that can, be a plug and play player to really elevate and bolster this offensive line. But I think that you can get a guy like Zeitler, but also draft a guard in the upcoming NFL draft as well, to develop behind a guy like Zeitler. So this is definitely a short-term plan, but also a guy that can come in and help us win right away. So my last free agency signing for the purpose of today's mock offseason video on today's episode of Keek on the Mic is edge rusher Josh Sweat. This is, to me, is another very, very good player for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears to add. I think we need to get at least one more edge rusher. I do like what I saw from Ricky Austin Booker, but Montez Sweat at the end of the day definitely needs help. And Josh Sweat, to me, is a very, very good football player. 27 years old, stands at 6'5", 265 pounds. Once again, really good NFL player. Showcases great speed. And is a really good athlete for his size. This season for the Eagles, he had 8 sacks, 37 quarterback hurries, and 54 total pressures. This guy is constantly in the backfield, pretty good against the run as well. But once again, just offering that support for Montez Sweat, and then you still have Austin Booker. I like what I saw from Jacob Martin as well, and maybe you can also draft an edge rusher to develop behind those guys as well. But I think it's going to be a must to really build the trenches. Edge rusher, offensive line, defensive tackle, build the trenches, because that's where winning football starts, and that has been neglected far too long by Ryan Poles during his first couple of years as Chicago Bears GM. So here we go, Bears fans. Now we're moving on to the NFL draft, where the Chicago Bears, and we're just going to do picks. We're just going to do rounds 1 through 3. So the Bears in the first 3 rounds have some massive draft capital. In round 1, they have pick 10. In round 2, they have picks 39 and 41. So I do like how the second round picks are back to back. And in round 3, they're pick 72. So once again, Ryan Poles has some massive amount of draft capital to really fix some key issues on this football team. But starting off with round 1, pick number 10, I have the Chicago Bears drafting tackle Will Campbell out of LSU. And once again, going back to the trenches, because that is going to be key for the Chicago Bears offense. Protecting Caleb Williams should be the number 1 priority. Obviously, in free agency, I got guard Trey Smith, I got center Drew Dalman, I got guard Kevin Zeitler, but I am not finished, Bears fans. I think the Chicago Bears should at least consider getting Will Campbell. If he is not there, get Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. If he is not there, then I would be okay with the Chicago Bears getting the edge rusher in round 1. But if Will Campbell is there, I really like him out of LSU. He stands at 6'6", 323 pounds. Campbell's size, him as an athlete, and technical skills make him a very promising prospect and the next level for the Chicago Bears. He has a very impressive footwork and ability to recover in difficult situations, and those are huge strengths. Campbell has the potential to become a top-tier offensive tackle. I know there's some concerns that he may have to push in maybe as a guard, and to me, that would be okay. I don't think Braxton Jones is a terrible option. I think at this point, we kind of know the ceiling of Braxton Jones, but I actually think that Braxton Jones may fit pretty well in Ben Johnson's offense, especially when you can get him on the move and block out and getting to that second level. I think he's going to fit well in Ben Johnson's offense, but I also think that Will Campbell has a whole lot of potential to be a very, very good player for a very long time. And once again, I am just focusing on the trenches because Caleb Williams is my number 1 priority. All right, so now moving on to round number 2, pick number 39. Once again, I am going back to the trenches, back to the offensive line, and selecting guard Tyler Booker out of Alabama. The guy stands at 6'5", 325 pounds. And Bears fans, I am not naive to the fact that Tyler Booker may very well be a late first round pick in the upcoming 2025 NFL draft. But if this guy is here in round 2, pick number 39, I am running to the podium and taking Tyler Booker. Booker has a blend of size, power, really good athlete, makes him an intriguing prospect. Love that he has experience playing Alabama's pro style offense. So the transition from college football to the NFL should be pretty seamless for Booker. This guy can be a day one starter, but my vision, once again, we got guard Kevin Zeitler. He is going to be the day one starter. And then Tyler Booker can be, a development guy. I think he could play right away, but we don't have to force him in there at this point. You can take him into training camp and he can compete with a guy like Kevin Zeitler. And if he wins the job, he wins the job. But I think it would be a very good opportunity for Tyler Booker to learn from a really good guard like Kevin Zeitler. Once again, going back to Tyler Booker, there is some couple things that he can fine tune some things in pass protection, but his potential is undeniable. He can be a Pro Bowler in this league. I have no doubts about it. And I think if you can find the right offensive line coach to really develop him the right way, this would be an A+ pick for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears in the future of this offensive line. And once again, people may say, Keek, why are you going overload with the offensive line? Because we have neglected the offensive line for far too long. It's finally time to invest in the offensive line to make sure that Caleb Williams, our franchise quarterback, is protected the right way. So here we go. Now moving on to round 2, pick number 41, our second round pick. I'm going offense once again, and this time I'm going wide receiver Isaiah Bond out of Texas. He stands at 5'11", 180 pounds. And the thing that I'm looking at Isaiah Bond is the fit that he would be in Ben Johnson's offense. I think Ben Johnson needs his Jameson Williams in Chicago, and Isaiah Bond would be exactly that guy. When you look at Bond, he is all speed. He's going to be running around a 4.28 40-yard dash. This guy is a dynamic playmaker with the versatility to impact games in multiple ways. He can be a threat by stretching the field vertically, or he can beat you on short routes. Ben Johnson can basically use him just like he used Jameson Williams with the Detroit Lions. He could be used as a chess piece, creating mismatches, forcing defenses to account for his speed on every single play. You add Isaiah Bond to what we already have. Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. I think Tyler Scott's also going to be more involved in this Ben Johnson offense as well. If you want to keep Keenan Allen, you can. But for me, I think Ben Johnson is looking for more speed on the offense, and Isaiah Bond would be the perfect player here in Chicago to give Caleb Williams yet another weapon to throw to. And hopefully this very explosive Chicago Bears offense under Ben Johnson. Here we go. Now moving on to round 3, pick number 72. I am now going to give the defense some love. Obviously in free agency, I got edge rusher Josh Sweat to pair with Montez Sweat and Austin Booker as well. But now I'm going defensive lineman Alfred Collins out of Texas. And to me, if he makes it to round 3, this would be an absolute steal for the Chicago Bears. Alfred Collins is a very, very good player, staying at 6'5", 320 pounds, so very, very good size. When you look at Collins, he possesses all the physical tools to become a disruptive force in the National Football League, has a rare combination of size, length, and athleticism that can translate well to multiple defensive fronts. So if the Bears do move to 3-4, it won't matter. They stay with a 4-3, it won't matter as well. He is very versatile to play in many, many different fronts. When you look at Collins, he excels against the run, using his powerful hands and anchor to control snaps. As a pass rusher, he uses his explosive first step and strong bull rush to set to get to the quarterback. His versatility is next level, will be useful to any team that drafts him. And defensive linemen, just building the trenches on the defensive line, offensive line is going to be important for Ryan Poles this season. I know that we have Andrew Billings. I have high expectations for Javon Dexter, but we also need some rotational guys, and Alfred Collins would fit that mold on what the Chicago Bears are trying to build here. And I think it's important to have a guy that's versatile. A guy that can stop the run, the guy that can get to the quarterback from that interior defensive lineman spot. And that's exactly what Alfred Collins would bring to the Chicago Bears defensive line. So now looking back over all the moves that we made on today's episode of Geek on the Mic for this 2025 Chicago Bears mock offseason. First, starting off with the NFL draft, we drafted tackle Will Campbell out of LSU, guard Tyler Booker out of Alabama, wide receiver Isaiah Bond out of Texas, and then defensive lineman Alfred Collins out of Texas as well. And then looking in free agency, we signed guard Trey Smith, center Drew Dalman, guard Kevin Zittler, and then we also got edge rusher Josh Sweat. When you look how this affects the Chicago Bears roster, Bears fans, when you look at the Bears offense, of course, you have Caleb Williams as your starting quarterback. Running back DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. Wide receivers Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Isaiah Bond, and Tyler Scott. At tight end, you have Cole Kmet. And your new starting offensive line, which is the most important part of this video, will look something like this. Left tackle Will Campbell. Left guard Kevin Zittler. Center Drew Dalman. Right guard Trey Smith, and right tackle Darnell Wright. I'm not sure if you know this. I think that would be a massive upgrade of the offensive lines that we've been seeing over the past couple of years. And then, of course, when you look at the Bears defense, you have Montez Sweat, Javon Dexter, Andrew Billings, Josh Sweat, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Jack Sanborn, Tyreek Stevenson, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, and Kevin Byard. And that's not even adding defensive lineman Alfred Collins as a rotational piece as a rookie for the Chicago Bears defense. I think this would be a really good offseason. I think there's some things that you can add. I've obviously looked at maybe adding a running back in the NFL draft. And I know there's a lot of people that are kind of concerned about DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. I could definitely see him adding a back that maybe has a little bit more speed. A guy like Henderson out of Ohio State is definitely an intriguing option. I know there's going to be a lot of Bears fans that may opt to go Ashton Jeanty in round one, maybe instead of going, offensive line or defensive line in round one, which that would be your personal opinion. But overall, I think this would be a home run offseason for Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson to really calibrate the offense around what Ben Johnson is all about, meaning having a strong offensive line, some speed by adding Isaiah Bond, right? And then also adding a really solid defensive lineman, Alfred Collins, and just continuing to build the trenches the right way. You win and lose in the trenches, and that's something that Ryan Poles has to understand. I think bringing Ben Johnson in as a head coach of the Chicago Bears and his experience with the Detroit Lions will really help Ryan Poles this offseason do it the right way and get Caleb Williams to the right protection to really excel as a quarterback in the National Football League. So overall, Bears fans, give me a grade A to F on how you guys are feeling about my very first 2025 Chicago Bears mock offseason on today's episode of Geek on the Mic. In my personal opinion, this at least has to be a solid B+, if not an A-, but give me a grade down below in the comment section. But as always, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. And once again, make sure you guys head over to betus.com and use promo code YouTube150 for a 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000, and also get 125% second and third deposits as well. But other than that, be back for all new Bears podcast right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on